I've had this happen. Somebody wants to meet up for lunch. Now, the person I'm meeting for lunch, I'm not quite sure what that person's wanting. Are they meeting up because they just want to hang out? Do they want to do business? Are they, in fact, wanting something else that they need? And often I can spend the first 10, 15 minutes of any type of interaction trying to play a guessing game and trying to figure out, what is this whole meeting about? Has anybody had anything similar where you're just not clear about what the function of the meeting is prior to going into whatever you're doing? So how about dropping, and nobody's going to come up with these agreements until you do it. If you notice, it's going to be you, because you're the one who knows. So what I'm suggesting is this: whether you're in a relationship or not, anything, whether it's business, friends, whatever, if you're going to sit down, this is how I would do it now, as somebody's sitting down, I say, hey, I've got a cool idea. And I think this will work to get something out of, so we get the most out of us being together here. Let's just share a little bit about what we both want to get out of this time. And then we can make sure that before we leave, we've kind of provided that for each other. So, so let's look at, what's the purpose of us coming together here? And what is it that you want? And we get it up front, the agenda, right there, right at the beginning. And sometimes I'm always amazed, like, oh, that's what you want, really? And it's like, it's so easy, we can go directly to it rather than playing all these games, navigating towards it. And it's important to give the agreements to your man in such a way where he knows that he's getting what he needs from it. In other words, to know his value system is very important. So in other words, what benefit would these agreements have for him? Yeah. Well, if he's in the relationship, you have to find out, well, why is he in the relationship? If he's in the relationship purely, I don't know, to satisfy a loneliness, then these agreements will feel like, what's the point? Because he's not going to want to have a deep connection with you. He just wants enough to satisfy and pacify a loneliness. So this is a wonderful test, actually, because men that are completely repulsed by the idea of doing something like this are not the kind of men you want to be with.
No, of course.
Therefore, any man who really wants to deepen their intimacy with you would thrive on the opportunity to find a way to actually make it work better. And you know what? The sexual hook is a big powerful, it's called, in terms of marketing, it's called the lever. There's like 12 different levers that people have. But the sexual lever is actually a good one to pull on men. Not to say that you're going to give him more as a reward. I was joking about that. Well, actually, not really. You could if you want. I was actually saying that the fact is that having these agreements creates a container, and in that container it allows you to get on better. And when you're getting on better, you have a lot more frequent and better sex.
Okay. Yeah.
The end benefit is extraordinary lovemaking, because from a healthy container there's safety. Where there's safety, there's openness. When there's openness, there's intimacy. When there's intimacy, there's however that transpires. So you can pull that lever if it serves you. If you've made an agreement with each other to not fix, offer solution, give advice unless it's invited, if your partner crosses the line, you have a way to communicate to them and say, honey, we agreed not to do this because it doesn't feel good when you fix me, because in other words, because you've already made the prior agreement, you have a way to own your truth and share with him about that. How can you talk about when he's crossed the line when he doesn't know there's a line? Yeah. So the reason you make agreements is to create a line in the sand and say, this is what's in and that's what's out. When you go from here to here, I will speak up. And you're giving yourself permission to share your truth and speak up. Without the agreement, you'll find it very uncomfortable. That's why I've noticed that, in life, when I'm having dinner with somebody I don't know, and they start talking in the second person, and they say, when you really do this and you do that, and you experience this and you do that. You understand what I mean? They talk in the second person. In the retreat, I correct that. and I say, can you talk about the I, please? Because when you speak from the I, there's a real empowerment that they experience and everybody else feels. Would you do that at dinner with people you don't know? It's confusing and confrontive to bring somebody into the I when, one, they have no idea or have never been taught because it's just their conditioning. And secondly, without a prior agreement, it's semi-invasive. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you're having dinner with somebody and then you're talking and suddenly somebody interrupts you and say, oh, can you use the word I, please? And you're like, what? As soon as you set the tone and set the agreements for your relationships, you then have the freedom to express yourself. You said you wanted to learn how to express yourself. The more you create conscious agreements with the people that are in your life, the more you communicate what's in and what's out, what's okay, what's not okay, what's in. Then you have the ability to go to them and say, this doesn't work because we've talked about this. You've set it up that way. That's why if your relationship is built on no agreements, you're going to feel very hindered and very constrained, like there's no space to share anything, because you've not talked about how you share things when it gets difficult. Yeah, you get it? Set it up that way, and you then have a freedom to come back to it in the future. That's why, try it if you want. Have a dinner with somebody you don't know that well, but at the beginning, you say as a joke, as a little play, little fun game, hey, how about we communicate? Whenever we share about ourselves, we speak from the I. Now, it'll sound really weird and a bit anal, but I'm only asking you to do this as an experiment to see if it changes something. And you actually set it up that way and say, hey, listen, I just want to share this way, blah, 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 blah. And then you go through the meal, and when they go into the you, see if you can feel more freedom to actually share, could you talk about it in the I, than you would otherwise. I'm telling you, you'll no doubt feel like, yeah, it feels good to share it with them. Yeah. Because you've set up the prior agreement that that's okay. Agree to make agreements, step 1. Cool?